Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Do Up It Shit Today podcast. I'm Hannah. I am here with Nick. Hello, Nick.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for jumping on. I will be totally frank. I have no idea how to start this episode because you are probably one of the most stacked accolade of human beings I've had on this podcast, or one of them. I should start by saying. Holy balls. So I'll go into the background just very briefly, and then we'll take a deeper dive into some of these sections because this is beyond impressive and very fascinating. And I just would love to know more about it.
Cool.
Okay. So first things first, you're a marathon world record holder. So you have set over 11 world records, but one of the most prominent ones, I would say, is that you have run 196 marathons in 196 countries. It took you a little bit over 600 days.
Correct. Yeah. The key thing there being every country. That was
every country. And I will say, I didn't realize this is kind of a geographical stunt on my end. I did not realize there was 196 countries.
Yeah, me neither. But I learned.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. So you're also an author of 2 books, Running the World, which is where you kind of recap running through every single country in the world, and then Running the Edge, where you run around the British coastline, which you've also done.
Yes. Yeah, that book, Run Britain, was so much harder than... the book to write was a lot easier because it was just one country, not all of them. But to run, it was so much more intense because that was over so much shorter time scale than the world, and my body took a beating. Yeah,
I could see that. All right, and then the third thing I wanted to call out is the 196 Foundation. So this is an organization to support and raise awareness for various causes, which you've kind of, and we can talk about this, you've linked the 196 to the 196 countries, I believe. That's where that 196 comes from.
Correct. And the donations that we have in, there's only one way to donate, and that is monthly at £1.96 a month, or $1.96 or €1.96 or whatever it is. So that 196 is my special number. Yeah,
I love that. Okay, and then lastly, which we'll also dive into, we have run weekends, and so you're actually wearing a run weekend hat. These are, I wouldn't call them retreats, but they're kind of experiences that occur on the weekend.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, I think in my, when I was dreaming it up, we were calling it retreats, but they turned into slightly more than that because it's so active. Retreat, I think, kind of smacks of calmness, and there is lots of events that we do which are quite calm, but mostly they're running getaways, running trips, running holidays, running adventures, whatever you want to call it, just going to far-flung places and some just generally really known places, but trying to find the best places to run and hang out, and there's no pressure, there's no speed, there's no racing. It's just get a group of people together and go and run for anything from a couple of days to a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. And I will call out, because I of course did a deep dive on all this because I thought it was fascinating. Like some of the places that you've selected, like the Dolomites, I think like that's an iconic running place. But then you also have places listed like Dubai, where there's
exactly. They make it into and that's kind of the purpose. We're in the early, it's not been that long since we've started, and it's gone crazy, I think, for the reason that we've just kind of been wide open with where we go. I love to run in the mountains. I love to run trails in beautiful places. And would I have put Dubai in the top 20 places to run in the world? Probably not. But you then kind of look into stuff and realizing where you can go and what you can do. And I was like, yes, that's actually, and we had the most amazing time when we hosted it the first time. And ever since then, it's stuck. So yeah, pretty pleased.
That's so cool. I looked at, we'll get into it, but they're also very dreamy. Like they're beautiful. You check off so many boxes when you do that. So I listed some of the things that you've done thus far. I'm sure there's more to come, but I wanted to take a moment and kind of step back to the 196 marathons in 196 countries.
Sure.
So I think the biggest thing about this, because it's such a lofty thing to do, like it took you over 2 years.
Yeah.
Or just about.
Yeah.
Just about. Where did this idea come from? And 2, I'm curious about, like, some people don't even dream that big. And so I'm curious your mindset of even like putting this on something, on like writing this out on a piece of paper and being like, holy shit, like this is possible and I'm going for it. Like, can you talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think the mindset and the madness to give it a go, that is something, like you just kind of hinted at, is I'm very proud of, but more than anything, I'm grateful that my mind has done that. And that's only happened because of the upbringing I've had and the encouragement and the ultimate confidence in my own ability through good parenting, good family, good growing up in a developed country. Like there's so many reasons, and you see the whole world, and you realize that I'm the guy that's running, but actually there's a lot that's led to that point. So actually taking the decision to do it was definitely the most proud moment of my life, because it was a big step into the massive unknown. You didn't know how many countries there were. I had no idea either. Even when I decided to do it, and then kind of finding out the numbers, and it just got too crazy. I think there's another element of naivety. We can't forget
Mm-hmm.
that oh yeah, that would be cool, let's do that. But then actually following through and planning it, and it took me 2 years to plan, full time contacts, team of 19, traveling on my own, doing 3 countries every week for nearly 100 weeks, and battling food poisonings, muggings, attacks, car accidents. It cost £1 million. It was expensive and difficult logistically, emotionally, geographically,
Yeah.
politically, like all of these reasons. So that's the kind of the mindset side, and it was tough. The story that led me to to the idea was, in a nutshell, had a normal job, gave up the normal job to take up running, which was again a bit of a gamble. Um, During that time, running some ultras, having some sponsors, kind of doing the world tour. I was running in the infamous Marathon des Sables (MDS) in the desert, and I met this chap who was 49 at the time, called Kevin, and he was just a normal bloke. In the tent, you stay under these camel hair bivouacs, 1,000 people running 280k through the desert, and 7 other people in my tent. You get chatting, you kind of become brothers and sisters throughout the race. You really
Yeah.
learn to love and look after each other. And one day, I think it was day 3 of this 6-day event, um, he said he had terminal prostate cancer and that he might only live for another 2 years. And this was the kind of the beginning of the moment. It was almost a lag in my mind, because initially you think, whoa, that's impactful,
Mm-hmm.
speaking to somebody that is very aware of when they know they're likely going to die. Obviously, it's sad. You have empathy. You try and comprehend what he's telling you. But then there was the weird disconnect between that he was telling me all this with a smile on his face, and he was upbeat. He was running with me in the desert, and it just kind of, I don't know what the word is, just discombobulated me a bit. I was just didn't understand the connect between I'm dying versus I'm actually all right with it. And he said to me something that was really quite profound, which was, don't wait for a diagnosis. He said, whatever you do, don't wait in your life for something bad to happen to give you that kick up the arse you need to go and fulfill your dreams, live your dreams, do what you can do. And I said, well, I've given up my job, I'm running in the desert, and he said, but what would you do if you could do anything? And that was, I get goosebumps every time I think about it, because
Yeah.
my first feeling was embarrassment. When somebody's dying and they ask you that, it's embarrassing because you don't have an answer. And this person's like they're counting down the days, and they're trying to do everything they can with their life. And somebody that's got unlimited time, seemingly to us, and the answer is I don't know. And that kind of really hit me and stuck with me. And I got to know him, and it was prostate cancer, and I wanted to do something for the charity. So race finished, went home. It was a tough race. Stayed in
Yeah.
touch, and I thought, well, what can I do? Let's Google a few things. I just it instantly came up with the idea. I would raise £250,000 for Prostate Cancer UK, and I would do something in the running space and kind of live by Kev's counsel, live by what he's trying to tell me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And through a few minutes, maybe 40 minutes of just working out what I was going to do, I randomly Googled, has anybody run a marathon in every country in the world? And I couldn't find anything. I was like,
Yeah.
nobody's done this. And I looked into it and looked into it and looked into it. And then a couple of weeks later, I spoke with Kev, have a meal with him and his family. And I then set my family down and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run a marathon in every country. I didn't really have any other plan other than that. And my parents, the first thing they said to me was, how many countries are there? And I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know, but I'm going to do it. And they know through all the other sporting stuff I've done and that I'm pretty intense, all or nothing. And they knew I was serious. But I think a lot of them, a big part of them, all of my family, and maybe Kev as well, I don't know, believed in me. But I don't blame them for probably having a lot of, you'll probably give it a good go, but that is a bit mad, but we'll support you.
Hmm.
Um, and then 2 years after that initial thought, January the 6th, I was at the airport saying goodbye for 2 years. So,
Oh,
and yeah, I set off and there you go. And there's a hell of a lot of stuff in the middle there, but but we did it.
yeah. I didn't, because one of my questions I wanted to ask you was usually when you have these lofty goals, first off, I think and I'm not pronouncing it properly, the marathon that spans 6 days in the desert. How do you say that? MCG?
Just call it MDS, Marathon des Sables,
MDS.
Marathon of the Sands. Yeah.
I've heard the most spiritual things, most awakening moments happening for runners there because it's you and sand and people. Like you're stripped so bare of the necessities
Yeah, and you
that
know what? For me, everyone said the same thing to me, like it's life changing, or et cetera, et cetera. I was very fit, probably the fittest I've been. I had some horrendous kind of pains through the race. It was hard for me, but I went into the race not really expecting to feel anything special, and I
Mhm.
actually came away from the race not feeling anything special because it hadn't really dawned on me fully the power of what Kev was saying to me. And I remember you finish and you have a hotel before everyone flies home, and I was seated next to the organisers of the event, and he said, "Did you enjoy the race? Will you come back again? How was it?" And I said, "No, it was horrible. Never again." I was in pain. I'd actually broken my ankle during the race as well,
Oh
so I'd
Jesus.
really suffered to get to the end, and I was really really proud of finishing, and I was pleased to be there, but it was horrible. It was brutal, um, and I kind of came away not grumpy, but like, okay, that's done, survived it.
Mhm.
And then looking back, that moment in time of meeting Kev has changed my life.
Mhm.
So it is true what they say, that race really does change your life. It just didn't feel like it then.
Yeah. So so you've got the goal, and then when you start to tell people, I think this is also quite critical because some folks, when they have lofty ass goals, they either keep it to themselves or they
Mm,
share. And I've heard mixed emotions about sharing your goals with people because you gauge your goal off their reaction.
that's true. I think if you, I believe there's something in me that's, and I think it's a really lucky trait to have, is whether I share it or whether I don't. If I'm going to do something, there's a moment in my mind and it makes it up that I'm going to do it and I'm doing it for the right reasons. And I think that maybe there's an element of my personality that's quite selfish and I will do it for me. And anybody that I coach, if they're not doing it for the right reasons, they do not succeed. And I'm sure
Hmm.
you come across that. And I was doing it for the right reasons. I didn't want to be asked what would you do in the world if you could do anything and not have the answer. And so this was
Right.
it, and it really stuck with me. Um, so telling people, it wasn't a big announcement initially. There was a few chats with friends and family, and then it was a case of, right, well, if it's going to happen, before I even work out how many countries there are, I know I'm going to need loads of money. So
Right.
let's go and find some sponsors. Let's put some packs together. Let's work out a bit of a route. Let's go to a travel agency. Let's just spend some time behind the laptop learning stuff. And then through the weeks and months that pass, then you start to slowly tell people. And I think it sinks in. And the more you tell people and the more they look at you like, yeah, good luck, not going to happen, the more you want to do it.
Right.
So
Oh yeah.
that's I think because it was so big and because the reactions were largely yeah good luck with that, um, kind of embedded and ingrained my decision further.
Yeah. So the logistic aspect that you mentioned was interesting. So when you left to start this, you didn't come, I mean, for the most part, you probably didn't come home in between. Because if you're running three marathons,
A week, no, and that's average. Sometimes it was five, sometimes it was two, sometimes it was
oh
only one if I
gosh.
got stuck somewhere. But I know, so that was. And so the running side of it was definitely the easy bit, and I'm not joking. It really was the easy bit. Everything else was the hard bit. The logistics, the travel, the visas, the passports. When we planned this, we thought we would need around 120 flights, maybe two or three passports because they would get full with stamps, and maybe we'd
Didn't
need
even think of
about £100,000. The 120 flights turned into 455. The £100,000 turned into £1 million. and the 3 passports turned into 9 passports. So you can imagine what we thought would happen and what actually happened was so
Yeah.
far from that. We ran out of money in 4 months, and it was a 2-year trip. That's that's the reality of the project, and so the endurance and the real accomplishment comes from overcoming those objectives and those overcoming those battles, more than the actual objective of running.
Whoa.
Yeah, it
I
was
didn't.
mentally tough,
I
really tough.
bet,
Yeah.
because if you've got the running aspect aside, because running a marathon is not easy. Like, I hope people, like, obviously running a marathon is not just an easy feat. So you're running like, you've got the running aspect, the logistics aside, the financial backing, the sponsorships, all of that also not being steady all the time.
No.
Wow, that shows some serious mental fortitude right there. Holy
It,
crap.
and I think it's also, like I said, a little bit of the naivety element and the blind faith in family and friends, and the general cause and the energy behind the project, and knowing that. And I had from my mum from a young age to kind of believe and believe and believe, and I
Oh,
did. And through lots of help, with contacts, ultimately just speaking to loads of people, thousands and thousands of emails. Not exaggerating, we sent at least 10,000 emails to companies to say, can you help? And whether that be with kit, whether that be with flights, hotels, visas, transfers, whatever it might be. And 90% of the time, the answer isn't no, it's just no response at all, and
yeah.
that's bad, that's tough. And then the deal, like when you finally get a maybe, then that's good, that's positive, but they're few and far between, and maybe most of the time it's still a no. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's the extent of, you just have to keep battling. But I'm very, very grateful for all the team, because as soon as I was running, as soon as I was on the road, there was very little of that I could do, on my own, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Wow. I also want to call out the two as well, the perseverance with the no reply. Because
mm,
I've not done anything to the drastic level 196 marathons, 196 countries. But the lack of reply, it can break your heart when you're like trying to just get something. You're trying to
yeah,
kickstart something.
that's that silence is deafening,
Yeah.
is so loud, and you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, 11 world records later,
Jeez,
business,
dude.
oh, yeah, but my point is, it's that was from zero to now having all of that, and press, and a brand, and etc., etc., and it is still like that.
Mm-hmm.
There is still, yes, okay, I get many more replies, but most of the time it still leads to, well, we'll see what's in it for us. And actually, the landscape of sponsorship and influencing was just rising when I did this project, and now we're deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, I would say, kind of on the other side of it, maybe. And so it's a different world now.
Yeah.
Having a project like this, I mean, I look at anything from social media or mainstream media, and there is, every few weeks there is another person doing some run somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing it, that just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And so it is still as hard. I mean, it's not as hard, but it's not as easy as people may think still, even having the accomplishments I have.
Yeah. Because you started this in 2019,
I started on January the 6th, 2018, and finished,
2018.
yeah, finished November the 11th, 19. Yeah.
Yeah, because I also wanted to call that out, because I don't think there's kind of this, and it's no negative to any of the amazing people running all these long distances, but I think you started doing stuff with that's like, okay, there's a marathon. Well, I'm going to run
Mhm.
196 of them, and it's not going to be just in one place. It's going to be all over the world. I
Yeah.
think you see now, like, I'm going to run the perimeter of this, or I'm going to
Mhm.
run across the states. Like, that's huge in the United States, to run across the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was kind of, you're right. You do see that happening a lot. And I think it's amazing. I think the reasoning behind it to raise charity money for
Yeah.
charity and causes is great. There's no diss, if you will, to what's
No.
happening. I just think from where you started in 2018, that hadn't happened yet. So it wasn't as like, you're doing what? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
I look at it as, there's the greats. There's Dean Karnazes, for example. not that far from you, just up the road in San Fran, and he is the godfather in my mind of ultra running and doing
Mm,
crazy trips and 50 and 50. And but then after he did that, there was a bit of a lull, and then a few people started it, and few people started doing similar stuff, and I was kind of in the mix of that. And now we're in a different realm altogether,
yeah.
where I'm literally tomorrow there'll probably be someone starting a massive on foot trip. Because there's
Yeah.
always climbing mountains, rowing oceans, and doing crazy stuff. Like, just many people don't know about it because we just see the what I would call the crappy bits of the internet most of the time, because the algorithm picks up what people want to click on. But the cool adventurous stuff, there are so many unsung heroes out there that I
Yeah.
know, that I don't know as well, that have done so many amazing things, that deserve to at least have a few spotlights on them.
Yeah. So looking back, you know, 2 years of your life dedicated to one goal, what would you say is kind of the biggest? Do you think that your let me rephrase this. How did your mental outlook on the
Yeah,
potential opportunities that life can give you, or
yeah,
just mental outlook at all shift after completing? Because 2 years is a long time
mm.
for one goal. I think people
Yeah.
get frustrated when it's like 2 weeks for a goal.
That's also another thing that I'm proud of. There's a lot of people doing stuff, and a lot of people did stuff, but 2 years is a long
That's a
time.
long time.
Um, Mostly because I was either on a plane or running. Like, that's pretty much my life for that time, or trying to stay awake to eat some food, which was a challenge, or finding some food that I could eat that wouldn't make me ill. But so perspectives, I would go as far as saying I am not the same person now as I was then,
Mm-hmm.
as I was at the beginning of the trip, and it was an evolution. But I think maybe a year after finishing, I can strongly say I am not the same person I was at the beginning of that trip, if that makes sense. And I think it's because I was able to soak up some of the world's kindness,
Mm,
greatness, vastness, whatever you want to call it. But my perspective on everything changed. We have our preconceived ideas of, if I say the word North Korea, Syria, Iran to you, everybody has an image, everybody has an idea of it. And then you go to the country, you witness it firsthand, and it's different because
mm-hmm.
we've lived certain parts of the world very intensely through news that is obviously mediated and isn't always as accurate. Um, and I had some of the most amazing times when I wasn't expecting to, and vice versa. Whether it be, for example, let's say the Bahamas or Cuba, you might think of beautiful beaches and sunny places, and when I was there, it was just thunderstorms and raining. That's a
Mm-hmm.
great example of, it doesn't have to be this big political thing. It's different, and so when you see that stuff, it changes you. It gives you a wider perspective, and with a wider perspective, in my opinion, comes greater inner peace and understanding, and then kindness towards the world. So, I yeah, I'm eternally grateful for what the world and everybody that I was in, that kind of shared miles with me, shared their footsteps with me,
Yeah.
and also just touched the project. Yeah, very very grateful for them.
Yeah. And then last question, 'cause I do want to transition to the 196 Foundation
Mm.
as well, because I think that's a beautiful thing I want to talk to you about. From a logistics standpoint, though, was someone traveling with you to make sure you were running marathons, or is it just you screenshotting, being like, "Hey," or videos? Like, how did that work as
Yeah,
well?
good point. No, I traveled on my own.
Okay,
There was a lot of rules
I bet.
with world records. Some of them were really quite annoying, because it made the project a lot harder. So I wore two watches, different
Mm-hmm.
brands, kind of using different satellites, so proving distances.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in terms of proving that I was actually wearing the watches and it was me doing it, not just sat on a bike or giving it to someone else, I had to have witnesses along the way. And I
Okay.
also had to have somebody kind of present with me all the time. Now, as it happened, most of what I was doing was either hire. So, for example, in, let's say, Iran, didn't have a city marathon in Iran,
Right.
so I organized a taxi, and they just a driver, and they would drive behind me with a car full of water, and I'd do my run. and they would be one of the witnesses to say, "Yep, I saw him do the whole thing," and that's a way to prove that I did it.
Uh-huh.
I've done that in many, many countries, whether it's bicycles, mopeds, bikes, buses, everything from that all the way to big official marathons like New York City Marathon or whatever. And also, as the trip went on, there was a lot of media attention. And so, where I would start running with a couple of people that wanted to come and run with me, by El Salvador, which was, I think, country 15 or 16, maybe 19, something like that, there was about 1,000 people running with me. So the project
Oh,
just got bigger and
wow.
bigger and bigger.
Okay.
So there was plenty of people to prove that what I was doing, and I started not to have to worry about that as the trip went on.
Okay, that was my question too, because I'm trying to picture you talking to some person like, "Hey, can you follow me?" Like language barrier. Can you follow me in
Sure.
this taxi while I run around 26
You joke,
miles?
but this was a real thing, we talk about the perspective shift. I didn't know it was a thing, that the word marathon to you and I is 42K, 26.2 miles.
Uh-huh.
The word marathon to a lot of people in some parts of the world is means a run, a jog. And so I would have people turn up at the hotel, or the family of, because I sometimes stay with lots of families, a lot of the time stay with people's families, and people would turn up at the place and say, "Right, I'm going to do this marathon with you." And then after 5 miles, they'll be going, "Are we going to stop soon?" And I'm like, "No, we've got to do a marathon." And they're like, "Yeah, but then no, 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 it's a distance. It's 42K. I've got to do, like, it's hours." And they're like, "Oh." So there was, and I can't tell you how many times that happened. And there was a lot of times when I said that, and people just didn't get it, and
Mm-hmm.
would would be like, "Can we stop now? What about now?" Like, no, we'll keep.
Nope. Long way
Um,
to go.
yeah, so that was a learning.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. So, from the perspective aspect of coming back,
Yeah.
right? You've got this like I don't even wealth of experiences, knowledge, people that you can that you can call friends, connections.
Mm.
Talk to me about your coming. Were you home after completing the 196 when you started the 196 Foundation?
Yes, yes. So when I started the foundation, yeah. So I got back. So it was November. Um, Finishing was a bit odd, to be honest,
I
because
bet.
I mean, I'd use the phrase "I ran out of countries," but I literally did run out of countries. And I got to the end, finished in Athens, obviously the birthplace of marathon, and
Wow.
finished in the stadium. Had people from all over the world that had run with me come and see me finish or run with me, and it was, I get goosebumps again
I
thinking about it.
bet.
I loved it. It wasn't this euphoric moment. It was more relief, and we actually did this. It was shock. It was all sorts of stuff, because there was so much towards the end that was difficult, and it's all in the book, some of which I can't remember. But we finished, and then getting home, madness of media and interviews and photo shoots and brands and all that stuff. But then when everything settled, um, I knew already that I was going to create this charity, and
Mm,
that was it was born out of, I went, so in Sierra Leone, in their capital Freetown in Africa. Um, I went to visit a hospital. So we were filming some stuff for the documentary, and I wanted to just go and see one of the hospitals because it's a very poor country, and I wanted to highlight the reality of illness in the country. And I was chatting to a lady who was sat on the edge of a bed with her young child, very, very sick. And it was through an interpreter, and she was saying lots of different stuff. And in there, I just picked something up. And what I realized I heard was that she had 9 children, and 7 of them had died. And this was really overwhelming for me. And through the interpreter, who was my friend, Dr. Jen, who was the doctor in the hospital volunteering, and we had this conversation. And I said, "Well, what's wrong with these children? Why have they died? What can we do to stop your other 2 remaining children dying in the same way? And how much does it cost? What's happened?" And long story short, we worked out that it was going to cost, to put their child through the hospital, to put their child into some schooling, and to feed them for a year, was going to cost about £43
for a year?
for a year. Yeah. Because it's so, they don't need much, but if they
Right.
have nothing and they get ill, they're screwed. and
Right.
and there's no, this hospital, and you think of a hospital, you're not thinking of what it was. Just a shed. It's a shed with brilliant, lovely volunteer doctors. There's no machines. There's not even windows. It's people. These people are dying all the time, and it's because they don't have the basics.
Mm.
And I went away saying we're going to do something. And throughout the remaining months of the project, I dreamt up what kind of idea could we have? How could we get lots of people? Because the whole project was made possible by lots of people helping. So I thought, well, let's have a donation of £1.96 per month. No more. You can't donate more or less. It's just £1.96 a month, $1.96, €1.96. You put it in the pot every month. And then every year we pool all of that money and we ask the donors, everybody that's donated, who we want to help. And it can be any project, any charity, any cause anywhere in the world. And we present 3 options that we think we can afford with the money that we have. And we go and deliver that project based on the winning vote. So last year we cultivated a 42-acre farm, and with the proceeds of building a school, we've employed loads of people to manage the farm. And that's through tiny donations. The previous year, we designed and manufactured a machine that creates affordable sanitary products for girls in Nepal who drop out of school because when they get to menstrual age, because of embarrassment and misunderstanding and fear. And
Yeah.
so giving them affordable sanitary products is super important. And then this year, we've just done the vote again, and it's a mental health charity called Big Moose in the UK who specialise in suicide prevention in young people. So every year it's something different, different countries, different opportunities.
Yeah.
The donors vote on who we help. So that project was created. We have lovely volunteers, and I'm loving doing it. I wish I had more time because the potential is huge. But I hope if anyone's listening to this and can afford £1.96 per month, tiny amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
put it in the pot. It's less than £24, $24 a year, and you can make a real difference.
Wow. I will say, like, very fascinating and a very cool thing to be on the receiving end of this story, because it's very, I don't know, very what's the word? Not adamant.
Admirable.
Admirable, but it's also very apparent. There it is. Apparent that when you have a goal or when you have an idea, you get it done. Like, I think that's very, like at least from the 32 minutes we've been talking,
Yeah.
like, when you have an idea, you hold on to it. It might not happen right away, but you're
So
going to see it through.
we have a funny phrase in the family actually, which is rather than where there's a will, there's a way. We have where there's a Nick, there's a way. And
Hey.
it's because if I don't do a lot of stuff, I don't drink, I don't do loads of socializing, I don't have many holidays, I don't do lots of stuff, but the stuff I do kind of go all in, and it's not by design, it's not because I'm trying to, it's just my instincts, it's my natural stuff. And the charity took about a year, maybe 18 months to create. It took me a long time to get it off the ground because you'd think creating a charity and trying to give would be easy, but actually there's a lot of red tape. And so speaking to lots of people, traveling all over the country to get contacts. And as soon as it started to get going and I had other people wanting to get involved, and I think that's the main thing. Anything you want to achieve, it can't just be me. And I learned that early on. And lots of lovely people have made it all possible. And without all of them. I mean, without the donors, for example, the people at the receiving end who give that money, we wouldn't be doing any of it without them donating. So I'm pleased, really pleased that people have taken the idea and gone, yeah, I think that's a good idea, because you don't know at the time. You don't,
Yeah.
just like I didn't know if anybody would notice me running around the world or if anybody would care I set up a charity. But I think the will to get it going is just is part of the very basics of doing anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And just at the strip of the core of the reason why you're doing it is very authentic. You're not doing it for
Yeah.
hype. You're not doing it for publicity. You're doing it
No.
because you're trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah, no, entirely non-profit. There's no money that comes to any of us,
Yeah.
and it's not even trying to change the world. It's just do my bit. When I get to 90 and I'm old, and hopefully if I get there, if I'm lucky, and I can kind of part ways with the world and going, yeah, I felt like I gave a little bit back and left the planet better than I found it, which isn't always easy to do. So I'm grateful.
Yeah. So I also want to chat about writing 2 books.
Mm.
That's also not another
Nearly
easy
four
feat.
now.
Oh, I'm sorry,
More.
4.
Nearly. We've got the fourth
Okay.
December in
Holy
December.
crap, dude. So you just can't be stopped. And I love this. I mean that in the best way possible, because I think your laser focus, again, I've only been chatting with you, recording with you for 35 minutes,
Mm.
but your laser focus on discipline and seeing things through has amassed you able to do some pretty awesome shit.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's a superpower, and I don't know really where it comes from. I think, you know what, part of it, if I have to try and get deep on it and try and understand what, because I get asked the question all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
this thing, yeah, but why? And to raise money, yeah, but why did you actually end up doing it? And I think the answer is prove things to myself, to try and get validation from family, all this underlying subconscious stuff. You don't realize you realize you're doing things for those reasons. But as you get older, you start to kind of have your eyes open to stuff. And I think some of it is I was really shy as a kid, like cripplingly shy. I was kind of scared of the world. I was dyslexic, so I started really hard to read and write. And
Mm-hmm.
I just some struggles. And I think, how many times have you heard from kind of success out of adversity, And it's not by design, it's just by default, by I'm having to work harder. And now, just like I was saying before we started recording, I love to work. I love to just do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I haven't needed that to be taught. But I think anybody out there that is wanting to do, and I get many, many phone calls or messages from people saying, I'm going to do this project, I need some advice. And I think the best bit of advice is just to get your head down and work it out yourself. You're going to have a lot of people to make it happen, but to actually really understand what you're undertaking. And even if the answers to that question is, I don't know 90% of it, at least you know that you don't know
Yeah.
90% of it, and then you can work on the rest. And just like run weekends as well, with everything we're doing, that was, I don't know if people want to do this. I don't know if it's a real gap in the market. I don't know if people want to run races, but do they want to just go and jog somewhere? I don't know. Just give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I guess.
I'm also one of the people that asks that question, like the why or the where.
Mm.
Where does this come from? And I
Mm.
think it's for folks who see someone admirable and want to figure out how they can pull some of that energy into their own life. Like, how do you naturally can kickstart? You have an idea, you see it through. I think for people that don't have that natural
Yeah.
reaction or progression, they ask those questions, myself included, because sometimes I'm out of ideas, or I just
Yeah.
I benefit from having people like yourself on this podcast as much as the listeners do, because I get to see it firsthand. But I
Thanks.
think people ask that question because they want to know how to get the type of energy, the mentality that you have, and how to get it into their life. And like you mentioned, there is no grand like aha moment. It's
Mm.
just having a goal and seeing it through.
Seeing it through. Yeah. Getting
Yeah.
your head down and doing it. I mean, I can ask the same question to you, this
Mm.
podcast. Why do you see it through?
It makes me happy, and I think it helps people.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's an easy answer, isn't it? And I think some of the reality is, uh, you are always subconsciously thinking, well, if not this, what? And for me, it
Mm.
would be, I could be earning loads of money I used to work in finance. I could go back to that job and have nicer cars, bigger houses, bigger holidays. I just don't want it. I've
Yeah.
found something that makes me happy. And I think a lot of people are out there living a life that they believe is their path, and maybe they've got the blinkers on because they don't want to see the other paths. But I'm constantly saying to people, just follow your passion, whatever it is. If it's, I don't know, knitting. Let's use knitting as a good example. Knitting's not famously profitable, in my
No.
opinion. Um, but if it's your passion, you will find a way. So follow your purpose and the money will come. That's kind of always been my mentality. Like, you don't have to worry. Don't put everybody I speak to is like, yeah, but I've got to pay the bills. I've got to do this and I need that money because this and this. And I'm like, stop focusing on the money bit and do what you love. And then eventually it will come. And I know that comes from an enormous place of privilege. I don't come from wealth. I don't come from money, but I am aware that that mindset is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that, just like you said, if it makes you happy, then boom,
Yeah.
you've gone to a winner.
Yeah. So really quickly about these 2 books, almost 4 books, before we jump into run weekends, because I ordered your first one.
Oh,
I'm
thanks.
super excited because I'll tell you what, I already talked about this, but when I was looking through your website and I was scrolling through all of the countries, the 196 countries, because you list them out, and then
Mhm.
it's a very visual,
Yeah,
like,
a
holy shit moment.
lot of countries.
Um, I was like, I wanted to know more about it. So from starting a charity, writing almost 4 books, was it you wanting to document for personal reasons, or you just wanting to share like as more of an inspiration token to others that like, yeah, set a goal, see it through. This is what you can do. And here's a little tidbit of how I did it.
Yeah, so first of all, very clearly, unless you're Prince Harry or J.K. Rowling, you don't make a lot of money from books.
No.
You know, you don't make a lot of money from books. So it's definitely not writing it for that purpose. And so what else? Yes, it's to share the story, but of course it's for myself. I want to be
Mm.
able to have a little bit to say. And I actually picked it up yesterday because I was doing some work and I was just a bit frazzled, and I put a 10-minute timer on. And I just picked the book off the shelf and just read some pages. I think I was reading Lesotho, and so that little one in within the within South Africa, within Africa, um, and I can just remember stuff that I wouldn't have remembered without reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a diary anyway. And I should say the book, when I wrote the original draft, it was 3 times bigger. Yeah, so the book is about 120,000 words. I wrote nearly 400,000 words in the original draft, and it obviously had to be cut because the book would have been like too big to hold.
A
It would have been
thesaurus.
huge. Yeah, it's a big book anyway. But and yeah, I write a diary every day, and this trip was one hell of a diary entry. So just
Yeah.
talking about all the trials and tribulations, and some of it's a little bit funny, I hope. Some of it's quite philosophical, and I think a lot of the book is not as you think about writing about running a marathon day after day or one after the other. You think you get monotonous, but the people and the
Yeah.
geography of the nature of the trip was made it interesting. It wasn't anything to do with me and writing. It was the trip kind of wrote itself, to be
Mm,
honest.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah,
And then your second book, which is, we didn't even touch upon this because just from a
run
time perspective, running around the circumference of Britain. Is it
yeah,
Britain or the UK?
Britain
Britain. Okay.
specifically. Yeah, so this was a project. So when I finished the world, COVID happened, and then during the middle COVID, you remember, like, there was almost a lull in the middle where we thought it was gone, and then it wasn't quite.
Yeah.
I went to run 100 marathons in 100 days down through north to south of Italy. So I did top to bottom of Italy, and that was amazing. Great trip. Did it with a dog. Lived in a van, and then finished the trip and drove all the way back up from Sicily to the French Alps, stayed in the French Alps, got locked down in the French Alps because COVID came again, and then
Uh-huh.
had 3 or 4 months there, did some writing, did some skiing. It was just a blissful time. During that time, I got fidgety to do more. And I just run 100 marathons in 100 days. And I thought, well, why don't we do 200 marathons in 100 days? That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not a good idea, by the way.
No.
It's stupid. Um,
That's a
and
lot of fucking
it's too
miles.
many miles. And I thought, well, I wonder where that could take me. And by chance, the circumference of Britain is around 2 marathons a day for 100 days, so 5,240 miles.
Oh, okay.
About, yeah, 5,240 miles. And so that was born. And then a few months later, got a bit of a crew together, lived in a van, a couple of vans we had, got some photographers, videographers, got some brands involved, and yeah, set off, and double marathon a day for 4 months around Britain. And that is why I say, when I said earlier on that Britain was harder, 196 marathons, less than 200 in 2 years versus
Mm,
200 marathons in 4 months. Like, physically off the
yeah.
scale from the world, but I didn't have the logistical problems. It was a very different book, and writing it and releasing it, I was a bit apprehensive about how people would respond to it, because
Mm,
in my mind it was just Britain, just the one country, and it's my little island. Um, but the country and the coast, gave everything. It's the same story. It wrote itself because there was
Yeah.
so many things I learned about nature, and I was listening to audiobooks a lot of the time. So I got through like 100 and something books during the trip, and I learned about the history, geography of the island, and so it was a and it's also co-authored. There's a couple of diary entries every now and then by my very good friend Andy, who was my right hand man on the trip, who cooked for me, cleaned for, literally
Oh.
did everything for me, and he had diary segments in the book, and I included that not as a sense of inclusion for him, like being polite. It was he really lived and suffered through this trip.
Yeah.
And when do you spend 4 months in a little box on wheels running 2 marathons a day with anyone? You don't. So he was my driver and brilliant friend, and I'm actually running with him in Kosovo soon with Run Weekend. So
Oh.
it was a hell of a trip, and I learned so much from it. And I hope people I think they are enjoying the book as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Because I would assume yeah. Like, did you also have like physiotherapy? Like anyone working? Like, no. Oh God. Wow.
Thing.
You really went for it.
Honestly, there wasn't time. It was about 4:55, about 5 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening every day, 12 hours a day. Get back 40 minutes to kind of change and eat, and then get to sleep. I'll give you. I shouldn't probably say this on a podcast. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mouth was just open out of pure shock. Sorry.
That, um,
You
I
thought I was frozen.
I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, but and it's in the book to be fair. Through those 4 months, 128 days, I had 9 showers. That's how little time I had to do anything else. I
Wow.
was literally just getting back, stuffing my face with food, and falling asleep, and doing that every day for 4 months. So yeah, very very different trip. It was a sufferfest. It wasn't running the world was hard for the logistics and all of the heat and the so many reasons, but Britain was tough for different ones.
I would just imagine from the body alone, like that would be like you see these people that do all these monumental runs, and they're like I said, there's no diss, it's purely amazing, nothing but inspiration. But they have like an entire team of like physio, like they have therapists, they have like they're getting rubbed out, like so I can't
We had
imagine putting that work in.
we had I had a really tight hamstring one day because I also this is all in the book as well, but just a classic life moment. One of my very very good friends during this trip was getting married, probably my oldest
Oh,
school friend, and we'd organised. I said, well, of course I'm going to be there, but I was running 2 marathons a day, and so we went to this, did the run, went to the wedding, carried on, and because I was dancing and stuff at the wedding and probably not having any sleep, I was then pretty ruined afterwards, and my hamstring was really sore. And we had a crew of me, Andy, and my ex girlfriend at the time, and then that was pretty much it.
uh-huh.
And she'd gone away somewhere else, and Andy and I were there, and I said I really need a massage for my hamstring. It's sore, and we didn't have any. We had to use vinegar. My,
Oh
my
God,
good friend massaged my thighs with vinegar.
that's the most British thing I've ever heard in my life.
No, um, yeah, not what you'd. And it was the faces that he was pulling while he was massaging my legs was just brilliant. So that was the extent of my physio and massage throughout 4 months of running. Yeah, not a lot.
Vinegar. I bet
Yeah,
that probably added really nice ambiance to the van too.
yeah, lovely smell. Yeah. To be fair, the van was
Oh
smelling.
my God. That's crazy. And so from what point from here, because this is just, continue the story of all
Mm,
of these accolades that you've got. When did running weekends start? So you've done all of these.
yeah. So did all of this. That's a good point. So Run Weekends is a couple of years old.
Okay.
Kind of been in my mind for a little while longer than that. And it was really born out of having lots of. I ran with about 4,500, 5,000 people on Run Britain alone, and I kind of
Oh
got a real.
shit.
Loads of people came out to run with me. I was so honoured. But I learned that people didn't really care about racing all the time. If you've done, let's
Hmm.
say you've done 20 marathons around the world. Let's say you've gone to a few city marathons, or even 10. You've done
Yeah.
some races. You don't really either have the confidence or you have the will to go and do an ultra marathon in the mountains, but you want to meet some runners and do something different. And you don't want
Hmm.
to do your run club, you want to go away on holiday. So I thought, well, running holidays is a good idea. Let's do something that can be cross between a bit of wellness, a bit of retreat, a bit of other activities. So there's some of our events are running, but they also have things like kayaking or paddleboarding or writing some poetry or creative writing, or there's other stuff in there. And I thought, well, let's create a weekend. People don't want to spend their annual leave, doing stuff. So let's just say it's over a weekend, few days, get together and find somewhere cool to run. And one thing led to another, and I thought, well, actually, that would be a good place. That would be a good place. And if we did that one for 5 days, we could do this. And then it just grew and grew. And
Hmm.
now we have, between now and 2026, we have 55 events. And there's only about 15 on the website at the moment because they're all in the planning stages. But between
Hmm.
now and 26, there'll be 55, and everything from running in Nice to Barcelona to the Dolomites to the Alps to Dubai to Corfu to Tonga to North Korea. We're taking people to next year.
Wow.
Just some really, and Australia, we're running 13 days over the center of Australia. Yeah, there's just some really cool places, and it's all about not racing. Like, you turn
Yeah.
up, you run as a group, don't have to have any ability. We can pick you up and drop you at the next spot if you don't want to run anymore. Like, we'll look after you, we'll provide all the meals, provide all the accommodation, turn up and we'll do the rest. And from the short time that we've been doing it, we've had incredible reviews, and I'm blown away by the fact that it's people really want it. So
Yeah.
keep doing it.
Yeah. Wow. And is it just you? I'm sure you have a team. Are you have a team helping? Like, from the planning perspective of all this, like, that can't be easy.
Planning perspective is, yeah, good point. So I come up with the kind of general ideas, and then
Hmm.
the model is every location we have, I have, through my running the world trip, a lot of friends. And so I
Mm.
say, and this is literally what I did. I had, for Dubai, for an example, I have a really good friend called Alice, and I said, hey Alice, we haven't spoken since I ran with you a long time ago. I know you live in Dubai. I want to do a trip here. Do you want to plan it with me? Yeah, sure. 9 months later, we hosted the trip. And that's pretty much what's happened in every country. And then I have a pool of photographers and videographers who come out to kind of record what we're doing, for them and for our publicity. And then we have a couple of medics who get involved for any of the other ones. So that's the team.
Wow. Full circle then. It's one of those
Yeah.
kind of, because you've done this, it makes, wow. Definitely could
Yeah.
see the power of contacts.
Yes, exactly. Good
Oh
people.
man, what's your favorite that you've done so far? Or that
Um, I'm gonna say, oh, there's so many. I mean,
I know.
The Dolomites, like you said, is just exceptional. Running for 5 nights, like running from hut to hut. Because sometimes we stay in like five-star hotels, sometimes we camp. Dolomites is right up my street. You turn up, you all meet, night in a hotel, and then you have 4 days running from hut to hut. Really high up in the mountains, all over the Dolomites, in Italy, and some of it's hard running. You go through some snow even in the summer. We're high up, um, and it's a glorious place to run. Having said that, Kosovo, which we're about to do, Kosovo and Albania, because we run across the border over the mountains in Kosovo, um, is very close to my heart for the connections purpose, which is
Hmm.
my running the world trip. I needed, uh, I went to Kosovo, obviously, ran a marathon in Kosovo. And I turned up in Kosovo airport, not knowing who was going to greet me because I was a bit blasé by that point. I just kind of turned up and people would look after me. Uh, and there was a guy standing there called Veton, and I thought, I recognize you. And years before, 5 years before, he was running a race in Silverstone in the UK, and we got chatting afterwards. It was raining, and we were kind of huddling under a hangar and just got chatting. And he said, "If you ever come to Kosovo, then take my number." And cool. I thought, I'm never going to go to Kosovo, but sure, I'll get your number. And we didn't really chat much. Probably chatted twice, and then years passed where we didn't speak. But he got wind of what I was doing. He got in touch with my manager Carla at the time, who was organising the whole logistics of the trip, and he rocked up and hosted me. Got the Minister of Sport. He organised a race. I did some TV stuff, and then I learned that he used to work for the UN. And I was like, hang on a minute. And he just finished working for them and he was available to work essentially. And I said, I need somebody in my team that can help with these other countries that are proving more difficult. Do you want to work for me? And he said, yes. And then 6 months later, he took over the management position as well, managed the whole project. We remained friends. He was there finishing in Athens with me. Most lovely guy, got a brilliant family, live in Pristina in Kosovo now. Um, and then a few years ago, when I started Run Weekends, I said, hello, mate. Do you want to do another project? And his response was, oh no, what are we doing now? And I said, well, I'll come out and I'll see you for a bit. We did some running, and I said, well, I'm going to do this. Do you want to do one in Kosovo? And he said, yeah, sure, I can organize that. And like within a day, he'd pretty much done the whole organ. It's so good. And then boom. And the reality is, without Veton, I would not have finished running the world. And now without
Oh,
Veton, I wouldn't have started run weekends. So and I'll see him in 3 weeks when I go and run it.
oh,
Yeah, contacts.
contacts.
Mhm.
Not what you know, but who you know.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Damn. Okay. I'm trying to be mindful of your time. I think I've gone through so many questions,
That's
but
all right.
I guess it's really amazing. And this is I feel, as a listener, I feel very inspired to have this conversation with you. And I think it's also really cool. I wanted to just bring this up because I think you could just book a hotel for X amount of people, leave it at that. You go around the
Yeah.
mountains, you come back down,
Um,
you immerse people in the culture of the country that they travel to.
Yeah, oh, very much. It's so intense, and we have what we say fixers on the ground. We have locals that support.
Yeah.
Just like in Kosovo, we have a really good guy called Abby who knows the mountains. He looks after us. He can speak the language. Obviously, Beton can as well, and organizing the food and the local, just everything. There's no point just going to a hotel and being in the hotel and not witnessing and feeling the country. But and I also think there's probably an element of everyone that comes out to run, if they're aware of me, which a lot of people aren't, then they'll kind of feel a bit safe in my hands because I've kind of done it and I've kind of got through the world all right. And so I think they entrust that not only will keep them safe, but they entrust that we will show them the real country,
Mm-hmm.
and the real place that we're in, and that's well and truly what we've done so far. So
Yeah.
I'm very honoured. I mean, I can't stress enough. I'm just I don't know. I'm just the one that does these kind of chats. The reality is there's so
Yeah.
many people behind the scenes.
Oh, man. So I have one more question and we can jump into rapid fire questions. But
Cool.
I didn't include this in the show notes. It's just what I've picked up from talking to you is based off of you leaving your finance job to now, you seem to be living the life that you want on your terms. And I think that's a scary jump to go
Mm,
from a safe space
yeah.
into not nomad life, because I don't think you're a nomad because but I do think there's a beautiful perspective that you bring
Mm,
into things happening organically, trusting that things are going to happen for a reason.
yeah.
And it very eloquently comes through when I'm talking to you. And so I was just curious how that kind of came to be.
Yeah, and it's not by design. That's the
But yeah.
reality. It's not like I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to do this, which will lead on to this, which will lead on to this. I think that's the main thing. Have an idea, follow what you enjoy, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it does. I was very lucky that I met Kev, who gave me the kick, because some people can live until they're 50, 60, or never get the kick and just go through and get to the age of, they'll be on their deathbed and go, "Oh, I wish I did more." I don't want that to happen. I want to
Yeah.
say I did loads of stuff and some of it worked, some of it didn't, and that's what I'm doing. I feel very fortunate. I am living that life where I can be happy. I live right by the sea and surfing, outdoors all the time. I'm working 10, 12 hours a day, and it feels like not like work at all.
Yeah.
There's days where I get to bed and I go, oh, I shouldn't be 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm running at 5 in the morning. I've been behind the laptop too long, but it's all choice. I'm not I'm not bound by annual leave. I'm not bound by trying to progress up the career ladder. It's just being in the now. And I think having the perspective of running the world specifically, and everything that it's generated for me, is that we have this tiny finite amount of time on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
When I do my corporate talks, I use the number 29,747, which is the amount of days an average human being will live for. 29,747, like 30,000 days. And if you take off the time when you're like under 5, you don't really remember it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you take off the time you're sitting in traffic, you're in the shower, you're brushing your teeth, all the stuff that isn't a choice, it's just like part of existence. You have very little time to choose what you do, and I want to choose what I do. And I'm fortunate to have lots of lovely people around me that will back those ideas and will support them. It's not lost on me that many people in the world, certainly in developing countries, that simply don't have the opportunities. And I have the opportunity. And the big headline thing here is that if you have the opportunity, you have the responsibility, because so many other people can't. And it's the whole thing of, imagine there's a town somewhere that is incredibly poor, they don't work, they don't have enough food, and they're looking at me saying, you've got all these opportunities, what are you doing? Just scrolling on Instagram or sitting behind a desk for a 9 to 5, like, do more. And so I feel like it's almost a duty to them to do more. And I'm trying to do my best, but you never know. It might be 30 years from now, I might not be known as a runner. I might have taken up knitting. You never know. I'm easy to just be in the moment.
I'm sure you know Tom Daly.
Yes. Yeah.
Prime knitting example. Started with swimming. Prime knitting example.
Yeah. Sorry, Tom, if you're listening. I don't dis knitting.
It is a fantastic thing to take up. It looks very calming.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Rapid fire questions.
Cool.
All right. What's your favorite marathon you've run thus far?
Kiribati. Island in the Pacific, beautiful, untouched, the most amazing route along the Kiribati. It's spelled Kiribati if you Google it, but it's Kiribati. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a favorite snack or sweet treat?
Dairy milk chocolate. Hands down, it's just a no-brainer. I've probably had more of that chocolate than I have out of any other food. Yeah.
We don't really have those. Is it kind of? I think it's very.
No, you don't, and I feel very sorry for you.
We do have, for some reason, Kinder, like the Kinder sweets with like the Nutella, but we don't have. You don't ever see the dairy
milk. Dairy milk is a thing, and I think specifically British thing, because anywhere else the dairy milk doesn't quite taste the same. So
because it's crap here. It's not even milk anymore.
Exactly, and they put all sorts of stuff because climate's different. You have to put like the anti-melty stuff in it, and it's.
I've never been to the UK, but I have been to Ireland, and it is fascinating. We're we stayed at like a really cute bed and breakfast around the coast. My stepdad is first generation Irishman, and like I asked for milk for my coffee, and this is before I was vegan, but they literally were like goats in the back one moment. I was like, okay, like that's just cool. The pure like. I don't think all of England is like, or the UK.
We don't all have goats. But some places in the world do have goats. Well, if you've not been to the UK, then come down to Cornwall anytime.
Okay, it's on the list. It's got. I mean, at this point, it's kind of where I'm being pointed.
Make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. What is one thing you want listeners to know about you?
I think it's the foundation. That's the headline for me. Like, if you can afford £1.96 or $1.96 a month, please, like, just give us a tiny bit of money and we'll do great things with it. And look it up. Like, that's maybe all I ask. Just have a look at the foundation website.
I'll put the link of this in like the podcast bio, and I'll make sure I have all the right links. But yeah, okay. I mean, you kind of already answered this with sweet treat, but do you have a go-to dessert, or is it just dairy?
It's dairy milk. And I'm off chocolate now, and I occasionally do this. Like I said, I'm all or nothing, so I have my diet. I cut things out, and I'm off it at the moment, and I'm craving it more than ever. So hence why I'm munching on an apple.
Oh, the apple.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Dairy milk chocolate. Okay, I have to remember that. Okay, go to dessert. We did that one, and then last question: what are 3 things that you're grateful for?
I am grateful for opportunity. Big one. Opportunity. Freedom, as in it's very basic, but I think we all take it for granted. A lot of people out there, you can't even pray to their own God, for example. I have the freedom to travel the world, to do all this stuff, and it's so easy to take that for granted. I'm grateful for all these other things in my life, people, my lovely dog, my family, the life I have, but actually just the freedom is huge.
Yeah.
And then the third, I think it is. I think it's being by the beach, actually, being by the
Mm.
coast. I'm very grateful to have a peaceful life by the beach,
Yeah.
because old finance me, that was not a thing. Walls, concrete, screens, fluorescent lighting, and now I can hear the seagulls and the birds outside, and might even get a surf in later on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm grateful for that.
The beach to me is like one of the best things. I think it's you recognize that with yourself as you get older, but
Oh
there's
yeah.
something about the beach where it's
Oh
just
yeah, and people say beach or mountains, and I'm like, yeah, I'll have both, please. But the beach is calming. I
hmm
could go down in the morning. I'll do a little thing where I take my camera down before first light and just have a cup of tea, sit down, take a couple of snaps of whatever's there. Usually there's nothing, and just be for a bit. 10 minutes just to start the day, and then go for a run and collect the dog, drag the dog out of bed. But it's a good way to start the day, and it gives you a bit of, I don't know, there's something about the infiniteness. You're looking at something
hmm
new every day, even though it's the same place. So
yeah.
uh, there's actually, I don't know if you've read Matthew Perry's book, but
The one that he just released.
yeah,
I have it.
it's
I have not read it yet. It's good.
great, and he's obsessed with just having views of the ocean as well, and the way
Okay.
he articulates it is much better than me, of course, but is bang on.
Okay.
Yeah, the sea is special, isn't it?
Yeah, I have it. I got it for Christmas. It's on the list. I've just finished The Rise of the Ultramarathoners.
Oh yeah,
So I just
yeah,
finished that one.
Adrahinahan, what's his name?
I don't it's very
A speaking event with him, and I can never say his name.
I didn't even have to speak. I just was trying to type it because I was just trying to learn more about him because he also kind of got his kick in the kick
Yeah,
from the same race
yeah,
that you
yeah,
did.
yeah. We spoke about that together. He's a great writer as well. But
Beautiful
yeah,
writer.
that's a good book.
Okay, I'll read that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last question: how's Poppy the dog? How's she doing?
How's Poppy? She is asleep, but a little restless. Here you go.
Oh,
She is.
oh my god, she's knocked out.
She's absolutely knackered. We do a lot of running, and she's on a bit of a diet at the moment as well because
Oh,
she was eating too much. So I think she needs more food and less running, but
gotcha.
not going to happen.
Okay, well that's the podcast. That's it.
Thank
You
you,
crushed it.
thank you so much, Hannah. I think, and again, just a shout out to you in the podcast and giving me a platform to chat through these things, because the foundation, what I do, wouldn't get publicity, and I also wouldn't have a chance to reflect and remind myself of the stuff that I've done, and make a new friend. And
Yeah,
so yeah, I'm grateful.
yeah.